What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Urstory. We're here with Doug Payne out of Extreme Colors Auto Spa in Greenville, South Carolina. Thanks for having us, Doug.
Yep. Thanks for being here.
So tell us about your drink of choice. This is one of my favorite drinks. I think I drink more of this than that.
I love Pellegrinos. Me and my wife, the first time I had one, we had traveled to a place called Grayfield Inn, which is on Cumberland Island. It's the only place you can rent on this whole island, and you could go get these out of the refrigerator just at will. That was part of the package. Nice. So I started drinking them then, and I've been drinking them ever since.
Well, I love this stuff. I drink a lot of it at home. This stuff's on here rock solid, though, so give me a second to try to open this.
There's so many options for sparkling water now. Yep. It's amazing.
There really is.
Yeah.
Mountain Valley, I was out with my brother. He lives in Little Rock, Arkansas, and they got Mountain Valley out there. Mm-hmm. We went through the whole tour and just drinking all the spring water there. And their sparkling water, oh my gosh, I got addicted from that moment on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it tastes really good. So, well, cheers.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
So you got a really impressive shop here, and it's a really cool town too. With us driving through, getting those small town vibes. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing, because you're kind of born in this world of
definitely.
Greenville.
Yeah, so I was born in Anderson, which is one county over from Greenville, but I spent most of my life in Greenville. I think we stayed there like 2 years before we moved over here. And my dad was a state trooper. They called him highway patrolman back then when he was on, and he was also a car lover. He could do anything. He was, he could go lock somebody up, and then he could come home and like fix the dryer. I mean, he could rebuild engines. He could do fiberglass work. So he ended up, he had a real passion for Corvettes, and that was that's the car of choice for him out of all the muscle cars that he liked. And he could do the fiberglass work, so he would buy old Corvettes, and he would, sometimes they may be wrecked, and he would fix them. And then sometimes they didn't need anything, and he would just buy them and clean them up and resell them.
Wow. Was he just a handyman, just learning this on the side?
He was. He actually was a mechanic before he was a highway patrolman at a Porsche dealership.
Wow.
Yeah, and then but he always tinkered with cars. Even, I heard when he was a young man that he was tearing stuff down and building it back up.
That's
so
awesome.
It's kind of in his nature to do that.
Did you guys have any projects that you worked on?
We did a lot of Corvettes, through the years, and that's really what got me started into this business, was just helping him. And he would do. So he had a friend that owned a body shop, and he would take his Corvettes there, and they had a deal they worked out where he would let him use his facility. And my dad would do, like I said, all the fiberglass work, which is not easy to do. There's not a lot of people who can do it well. And but he was really good at that, so he would do that, and then his friend would finish them out and do the paint. And then after the paint, then they would come back, and then eventually I got to the point where I would, when a car comes out of the shop, it's the painter is important to be able to paint well.
Yep.
But the guy who touches the car after the painter, that's the one who makes it look primo.
Blocks it down, right? Hits the rotary on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's funny you say rotary, because that's all we used back then. We didn't have the dual action polishers like we have now. And I would do wet sanding, buffing with a wool pad, 1800 RPM, and then I would use a waffle pad to finish with.
Wow.
Which is it's not easy.
No, it's definitely not.
But we would take the cars and make them look beautiful, and then he actually was a co-founder or co-operator of a big Corvette show that was here in town. They rented out our convention center, and he would take some of his Corvettes over there and sell them, and these were cars that we had worked on. And one in particular, I think I had just started doing this as a business, and I was mobile, and he asked me, it was a early 70s Corvette that he had painted, and the paint job was not that great, but it had a lot of paint on it. And he asked me to come and take a shot at it, see what I could do with it. So I wet sanded the whole car, every square inch of paint.
Was it single stage, or was it base clear?
It was single stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wet sanded it. This was really before base clear was a thing, especially in an aftermarket shop.
Sure.
But so I wet sanded the entire car, which I would start out with like 1200, 1500, 2000, and then I did the rotary polish using a compound that was so gritty. I mean, it was basically like liquid sandpaper.
Jeez.
And then I would do the compound and basically just trying to work those sand scratches out and just working it up until it was a polish and it looked like glass. I mean, it was like wet looking. But that particular car, he took it to the show that him and his friend had put on, and my dad was blown away that what I had done with that car.
Had he seen the car prior to the show?
Oh yeah. He had asked me to do it because of it, and he was like, I don't even want to take it there. And I said he was taking it to sell, not to display. And he said he was like, I don't even want to take it to sell it the way it is, so I may end up having to repaint it. So I was like, well, let me take a shot at it and see what I can do. And when he ended up, it looked fabulous, and he took it to the show, and he said that many people came up to him and said it was the slickest Corvette in the whole show, which was, I was like, okay, so I'm on to something now.
What did it go for? Did it sell for?
I don't remember what it sold for. Yeah. Honestly, I can't remember the value of it.
I mean, building all those Corvettes and being in that world with your father, have you seen any, since you still live in the same town, have you seen any of those Corvettes come here or on the street?
Yeah, actually, my dad had a 62 Corvette that he built when I was growing up. He had started to build on it. So it was a frame, it was an engine, transmission, and a body, and that's it. And I would drive that car around the neighborhood. Like I say, this looked like a jalopy, at the time.
Yep.
But I was on a bucket, and I would drive the car around because he'd wanted to keep the engine fresh. It was a 327 fuel injected, which for 62 was rare, so
Sure.
it made the car super valuable. So I would drive the car around the neighborhood, as a teenager. And then after my dad passed, I found the car, and my dad finished that car all the way through. And he had another guy paint it. And I didn't do much to that car other than drive it and look at it a whole lot through the stages of it. But with that car, it was a true show car. This is something you wouldn't put on the road. And I had a chance to buy it, but I ended up not buying it just because, that's the difference with me and my dad. My dad was a collector, so he would buy. I mean, when I was a teenager, the driveway was full of cars, Corvettes, Camaros, Novas, I mean, you name it, all really cool stuff. Then he had a detached garage that was full of cool stuff. So we were just inundated with really cool cars. And back then we left all the keys in the ignition. We never brought keys into the house. It's crazy, I know.
What was the idea around that?
We didn't need to.
Yeah.
It was so safe. We never locked our doors either, but we would go in, whatever we wanted to drive, we just got in it and drove.
Oh, that's so cool.
And it was really neat. But that car in particular, so my dad was weird because he would buy he had the final home before he passed over 2 years ago. I think it's coming up on 3 years actually, this month. But he had built a house with a detached garage that was probably about as big as all of our shop space, probably bigger. And it was full of, 55 Corvette, 56 Chevrolet that his parents had bought almost new back in '57. He had old Chevelles. He had like 69 Corvette, 427 convertible, and but it was like you could talk to him if you met him out and didn't know him, and you may have a Corvette, and he could tell you every detail about every Corvette.
That's so cool.
Ever made. I mean, every detail, the color, interior colors, options, side pipes, no side pipes, wheels, options, engines, and but he wasn't like a braggy guy. He didn't care. He didn't care if you knew he had 10 Corvettes or he drove an old beat up truck. That's what he drove every
Sounds
day.
familiar.
Yeah.
Although yours is pretty nice.
Yeah. No, he didn't care. I mean, he didn't care what he drove. He really didn't care what he wore. Growing up, he always wore blue jeans, a white T-shirt, and old highway patrol shoes that were ones he wouldn't wear on duty, and a baseball cap. That's how I remember him, like growing up. And then he ended up toward the end of his life. He dressed the same way. Wow. But he just loved owning them. He didn't care. He didn't go show them. He didn't drive them really much, other than just keeping the engines fresh. It was very, like I say, some people like to own something so that they can show it off, right? Or some people like to own something so they could, you know, display it or drive it and enjoy it. He just liked owning them.
That's so cool.
And you could talk to him for an hour and you wouldn't even know he had like 10 Corvettes sitting in his garage.
Wow.
You know, unless you had the same year and he was like, oh yeah, I've got one of those. But he was a very interesting guy.
Well, I'm sure if I was to see him with a Corvette and he was to tell me every last bit about my Corvette, things I didn't know, I'd probably get curious, being like, all right, man, how do you know so much about these?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Did you keep any of the cars?
Did I keep any?
Yeah, or
no.
did the family keep any?
No,
of
we
those
did.
Cars?
He had remarried another lady, so that we weren't included in any of that.
Yep.
Although he did leave me the '56 Chevrolet that was his parents' car, but I haven't done anything with it yet.
Yeah.
And we worked on that car too, growing up.
That's so cool. Yeah, my dad left when he passed away. He told my mom, out of all the things that they had, which at the time wasn't much, but out of all his toys, never sell his Harley. He says, Diane, he says, don't you dare sell this Harley.
Yeah.
Of everything, I was like, that would be the last thing I would want to keep. But he said, never sell this Harley. And we've kept it, and for 10 years it sat, and I finally pulled it out. remember going in there when I was like 13 years old trying to jump on it. I don't tell my family, well, they're about to know now, but I tipped the bike over a couple times. Oh, no. Thank God I was smart enough to slowly let it down, but it was just way too heavy for me at the time. So I finally pushed it back in the shed, left it there, and then when I was 16, pulled it out. In 18, I saved up enough money to go get it redone.
Oh, wow.
But we've had it ever since, and it's been on the road. Yeah, we
Of
took it to the
course.
Dragon.
You can't not have that.
You can't. It's one of those things, and you just when sitting on it, I remember the day he brought it home when we were in Wisconsin, when we lived there at the time. He brought this bike home, and all the kids went out. We have a picture of it. It was fall time, and we're all in our jean jackets that were 7 times too big for us, and just sitting on the bike, and he's standing behind it with joy. Yeah. My mom always said, you can never buy a motorcycle. Well, that's probably where I've learned my impulsive purchases. He decided to buy one. So she only got on it twice, both the times she burnt her leg, and she hasn't gotten it since. But it's just really cool to look at that bike and just understand the history around it. And it'll get passed down now. I mean, that's the one thing he said never to sell, so we're going to make sure that
you have to honor that.
You have to honor that.
Yeah.
But it just gives you a certain feeling when you walk up to that car, even though they've passed. You feel like they're still there and talking about the thing and putting you on the back and running around.
Yeah, thinking about your dad every time you see it.
Every time.
Yeah.
Yep. And it was a joy. I got to go. We do a victory tour, it's called. That's what they did when he first beat cancer. They went on a victory tour. And this year, or 2 years ago, when I first got the bike refinished, finally, it took about 3 years to get it done. I rode that damn thing down to the Dragon. That's not too far from here.
Yeah.
Took the Blue Ridge down and rode it with all his brothers. And they all just looked at it because the last time they rode with him was on that bike. Yeah. So it was a really cool experience to do that. My uncle ended up giving me one of my dad's jackets I didn't know he had. So we got that now too. But it was just one of those experiences, so cool. That it's cool how cars and motorcycles and little things that people collect over time, when they, after their passing, their memory still stays with them.
Yeah.
Which is much of what your father, I'm sure every time you pull a wrench out, he's right there showing you,
Oh, yeah.
Torque it down good, son.
Yelling at me for grabbing the wrong one.
I get that.
He's not a very patient man. Well, he was mechanical, and that's where we differed. I'm not a mechanical guy. I can't just fix anything. With YouTube, it helps, right? He didn't have
big
that.
time.
He didn't have
YouTube
that
learner.
back in the day.
No.
But I'm more of a cosmetic guy. Like as far as cars go, I care more about looks. He was more of a mechanical guy.
Yeah.
So we worked good together with his cars.
Well, that's kind of how you transitioned too, right? Out of school, you started painting bumpers, and that was the first start of we're in today.
Yeah, that's right. So we started out. It's a long history with our family, but my brother's he's in the automotive world.
Cool.
He's a painter, and he worked for a company and then went out on his own doing mobile paint touch up. He was doing like chip improvement, scratch repair, and he was the first guy in this area to offer that service to dealerships. And you're a little bit younger, so you probably weren't familiar with those days, but there was a startup to all that, like the PDR stuff.
Yep.
And
my guy Jim used to do it.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah, that's what he started with.
Okay. Yeah.
Out there in his van, spray on, right?
I'm sorry?
Out there in this van, just going to the dealerships.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Out spraying bumpers. We painted bumpers in the parking lot.
Yeah, that's what
he did a darn good job at it.
Still to the EPA, shut them down.
We actually were EPA compliant.
Under 3 ounces? Is that what it was, right?
Yeah, and your chemicals couldn't have the 5 metals in them. But anyway, But no, because I'm a rule follower, so we always try to do things the way they're supposed to be done.
Sure.
But no, that my brother started doing that, and that's what led into me doing it. My brother-in-law ended up taking over his business because my brother had signed a non-compete agreement, and they enforced it on him when he tried to go out on his own. So then my brother-in-law took it over, and he really took it to another level. And then I ended up learning under him how to do it.
Wow.
How to do the paint business, the mobile paint business.
And how old were you when that came to be?
I was in my early 20s.
Cool.
I was probably 22 actually.
Wow.
21, 22.
So you've been in this world for a long time. I mean, it's in your blood. Right?
It is. Well, it's cool because, Dent Wizard, all this PDR stuff, I mean, I was there, when all this in our area was just starting. The first PDR guys, the first interior repair guys, it was really I didn't know what was being started. I think of like Dent Wizard because Dent Wizard was probably started not a long time before I got into it.
Sure.
And that's, that company's been sold and resold, and it's a multi-million-dollar company.
Yeah, it's big.
It's big. And it's like somebody had a bigger vision at the time.
Well, Greenville's a really cool place, and faith and community, I'm sure, plays a lot into your life, at least knowing some of the people here.
Yeah.
Can you speak of how that's impacted you over the years?
Yeah, definitely. I think, we had talked about earlier how a lot of the success that we've had is, and I had mentioned that a lot of times, when you have a successful business, that you just start feeling prideful.
Yep.
And you think, man, I did that, but then really if you, like for myself, and I've had this conversation, a lot of our customers are affluent, successful people. And early when we first started doing retail, when I was dealing with customers more, I would do what we're doing right now, and I would pull them in my office and just talk to them, about their business, how they became successful. But it was amazing how many people would admit that they had a lot of grace in their life. And there was a lot of people who helped them. A lot of people believe God helped them with their business. These are Christian people, obviously. And and that's been true in my life too. I think God's done a lot of things. He's opened a lot of doors that I don't think would have been open for me.
Yeah, and you can tell when you walk into this place, it seems like that's an overwhelming just energy with your whole team as a whole.
Yeah.
That you could just feel that. Even last night at dinner too, kind of the same thing, and meeting your wife.
Yeah.
Definitely felt it, which is really cool. It's super comforting.
Yeah.
Walking into your office and just sitting down, and all you guys are just open, cool dudes. That,
This is a tough industry.
Very tough industry.
Because and it's tough because it's it's a male-dominated industry.
Yep.
And so it's a lot of egos. And like I say, we all have the potential to do that, and if we don't keep ourselves in check. But I really do believe that none of us would be where we're at. I think God put all of us together, the whole team here, and I think opportunities like me sitting here talking to you right now, I think it's miraculous in some ways what we've been able to do, and the lives we've touched, the friends we've made. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
It really is, and I would have never guessed it. I mean, I kind of fell into this industry like most people. Most people did. The cool thing is this. Badass woman to our left right now, Chris Avens, is kind of shifting that male-dominant industry and bringing that woman vibe into it, which is awesome.
I think it's necessary.
Oh, it's 100% necessary.
I think a lot of the work we do, females are generally more detailed.
Yep.
My wife is anyway.
So is my mom.
Very detailed.
And my wife. Yep.
But I think we're seeing a lot more of that, and I think that's for the good.
Big time.
Well,
that's why I was, I try to go back, and I always thought it was my dad that got me in the industry. And then one day my mom actually sat me down and she said, "Son, you're wrong." She goes, "I'm the one the reason that you're detail oriented." She goes, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're so right." And I was so happy that she said that, because I always viewed, working on the bike and detailing in the garage with my dad. I'm like, oh my gosh, if it wasn't for my mom, her house is always spotless, her car's always clean. I don't even know how, because I don't wash it or detail it for her. I don't know. She just keeps it clean.
Yeah.
But seeing, I understood it from that moment. I was like, yeah, it's 100% because of you.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here today.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but like you said, the relationships too that you build.
Yeah.
The incredible people that you're able to meet that walk into the door, and it's a big trust level when people walk in the door. They're handing the keys over.
It is.
And trusting that you're going to get the job done and for what they're paying for.
We've had some of the customers we've had I talk about, when we first started going retail, we had one customer that we had done some back parking lot work for him when we were at the BMW store, and he found us over here and came in, and we were still doing some dealer work, but we were doing some of it over here. BMW had built a new store, and they wanted us to bring the cars over here and do them. So we were literally doing them in their shop. And that was more like paint correction stuff.
Sure.
And I had one of the customers come over, and he was buying a new Audi RS5 Cabriolet. And I didn't, I was like, okay, I didn't know what that was.
Proper car.
Great
car.
Because we
it's a Michael car. Audi man himself.
We didn't do the Audi store. We were doing the BMW. I could tell you any BMW, but
yep.
I didn't understand Audis. It sounded cool. RS. I mean, that's a good start.
It is.
And but he said it's the first one in the upstate, and he was getting it from Vermont, and he ended up bringing the car to me. We ended up doing paint protection film to it. We weren't doing ceramic coatings. Ceramic coatings wasn't even a thing back then.
Sure.
And but we did the paint protection film, and we had a big event coming up that weekend at the or 2 weekends from that at BMW. It was Eurofest, they called it. And I'm like, I signed up to go out there, and I didn't really have a car to take. I don't think I even knew I needed a car to take. I thought I would just go out there. But I figured out I needed a car, and I started as and like I said, we didn't have the customer base we have now. I knew one lady who had a F-type Jag, and I was going to ask her to use her car, and she was going out of town, and so I didn't even ask. And this guy that I asked about using his car, I said, would you mind? I asked him, was he going to Eurofest? And he said, no, I'm out of town that weekend. And I said, okay. He's like, why do you ask? I said, because I was hoping you would bring your car to the Eurofest and set it in our area for display. And he was like, well, why can't you do it? And I'm like, what do you mean? Because you're going to be out of town. He's like, well, I'm going to be out of town, but the car's going to be here. Now, this guy drove the car from Vermont to here, had the PPF installed, had a guy bring him over here to pick up the car, heard about all this, and ended up leaving without the car.
That's awesome.
And left the car with me.
Oh, that's so cool.
And we ended up taking it out. And I used that car every year for like 3 years in a row. And the cool thing was that car, that's why I say these things that have happened in our favor have been, unplanned.
Yep.
It was like we weren't planned properly, but something came through for us. And who does that? Who gives you the keys to a brand new RS5? It happened to be like one of the coolest cars out there at the event. Now, this wasn't a BMW event. This was a Euro event.
Sure.
So there's every kind of European car. But it was the first RS5 Cabriolet in the area. Nobody had seen it. They hadn't even seen it at the Audi dealer.
You still don't see many.
No, you
even
don't.
Today.
You don't.
Yeah.
You really don't. But when we had that car there, we ended up attracting huge crowds that wanted to come see the car. And when they came and saw the car, they got to see what we did to the car. And
was this wholesale days or was this retail days?
no, this was going into retail days.
Okay.
We were kind of moving toward retail.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool that it's like one of those moments that you're just like, I can imagine, especially an RS5 sitting there.
Yeah, I was dumbfounded.
Yeah.
Because that's just not normal. But that guy, he would leave every time. He travels. He still travels a lot. And I think he's in Amsterdam right now because I think we were just going to miss each other. But he would call because they would go like 3 months stints of travel. He's retired, him and his wife, and he would call me and say, "Hey, we're going out of town for 3 months. You want the car? I'll bring it over.
So you just
I'll
call
leave it with you."
Yeah, oh, that's cool.
and we would park it up front, and we would show. It was a display car that we didn't have to pay for.
He probably loved it too.
It was an $85,000 car at
Yeah.
the time. Yeah, and he loved helping. And we were grateful for that, and I haven't forgotten that.
You're still friends with him?
Oh yeah, yeah.
What has he bought since, or does he still have the car?
He's had a lot of cool stuff. He had convertible. He likes convertibles.
Sure.
He had a Mercedes C63.
Nice, another great car.
It's a cool car, gray with a burgundy top.
Oh yeah.
And my daughter graduated high school during COVID, and they did a drive-through graduation. So the first person I called who had a convertible, who I knew would because I wouldn't ask to borrow something if I even thought that I wouldn't put anybody on the spot.
Yep.
But he loves not only me and our company, but he loves my family. So he said, "Yeah, Doug, whatever you need, you can totally use the car. So we ended up driving the Mercedes through the graduation, which was so cool because the car is really like the color scheme on the car is really cool.
Wow, it's a gentleman's spec.
Yes. Yep. And he's got a 124 now, the Fiat.
Yep.
But it's really cool. It's white it's got the red trim. And we've of course worked on that one also.
Sounds like a great guy.
He is.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, he did my dad's funeral.
Wow. Oh, did he know your father as well?
He didn't.
Jeez.
But he just came on my behalf and ended up planting a tree in his honor, like in Israel, where he's from. So just a really cool guy.
Yeah, that's why I love every single day walking into the shop and being able to meet the next person that walks in the door.
Yeah.
But we're relationship built, just like you are yourself, and even speaking, with Jim and some of the other guys up front. You guys build relationships here.
We do, and naturally.
Just naturally, yep.
Yeah, we naturally do that.
Yep.
That's just one story. I mean, I could tell you so many stories about just things like that that's happened for us. The Performance Center, BMW, that's been a big story for us.
Can we talk about that?
We can talk about that.
That's probably the biggest. That's when Michael told me that we were coming down here. He was like, yeah, this guy Doug, he does every BMW at the Performance Center. I was like, there's no way a shop has got the BMW Performance Center locked down. Yeah. He's like, yeah, for like 10 years. I'm like, damn, let's go. He's awesome. But it's such a cool relationship. So yeah, just get into that a little bit, how, the impact that's had on your business and how that relationship started. Yeah,
so it started out, again, I had a friend of mine who called me and said the BMW manufacturer Performance Center, the Performance Center is an extension of the plant. And he said they're wanting some paint protection film installed on some of their cars, and would you mind talking to them? And we were moving toward retail, and that sounded like a wholesale deal to me. And I just had envisioned dealerships, which we were trying to kind of move away from, as I had that mindset. So I told him I would, but I didn't say when. And then he called me back later. Said, I don't know if it was a week or two later. He called and said, would you please at least reach out to them, whether you do work for them or not, that's your business, but I told him you would reach out. So you're kind of making me look bad at this point. So I said, yeah, I apologize. I need to.
Was he working at BMW at the time?
No, he was a vendor for BMW.
Okay.
Yeah. And, but just a mutual friend.
Sure.
And so I ended up going out and meeting, and the guy, Chris, that I met, which was going to be my contact guy, I really liked him. And I said, and that we were treated so respectfully out there, and still to this day, treated very, very well. Do you do any dealership work?
We just closed our first dealership account.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when
you don't
we
really
get back
have a
from
history with dealerships.
No, I'm happy you say this because now I'm going to talk to you about it.
Should definitely talk to me about it.
Yeah.
No, but dealerships, they can be. I've had some great dealership experiences, and I've had some not so great. And so I didn't know what to expect, but that facility out there and everybody who works there is just first class, and they have treated us with like so much respect because we were doing the work on site there, so we worked in their one of their shops. Cool. We would do their cars. They have over 100 fleet vehicles that they use on the track, and we touch every car in some form or fashion. And
you were saying earlier they have a massive expense prior to you guys coming in the door.
Yeah. So they were doing $25,000 per car in rework average, and that was 10 8, 9, 10 years ago. I don't know what it would be now.
There, yeah.
But they were having to repaint. You can imagine, because these cars were on the track at the Performance Center, and I mean, it's a very it's aggressive driving. It's the track gets stuff on it. It clicks it up on the car. So you're talking windshields, headlights, hoods, bumpers, mirrors. There's not much of the car that they didn't have to repaint.
Yeah.
And so when we did the paint protection film, we saved them so much money, and more importantly, we saved them time because their body shop just didn't have the ability to process the cars quick enough. So you may have a 2016 that they get finished with, and it would be 2018 before the car got processed and sold. So they were losing that value also in the car of time, of the car aging, just sitting. So we've been, and now we do. It's one of those situations where BMW says, we started out doing that, and then they're like, well, can you do this? Yes. Can you do this? Absolutely. Now you go figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
So we do all their wraps. We do we print all their decals. We actually just put in a bid for overhauling their whole performance center, all the wall graphics. I mean, it's a huge project with, I can't tell you how many square feet of vinyl we're going to be laying out there, but it's all through there. If you were out there, you would understand. There's a lot of cosmetic stuff they have with wall graphics and wall murals and just marketing. And they have to update that because the cars have to be updated.
Yeah, I mean, I was out. We went to the BMW factory in Munich when we were out there.
Oh, okay.
And that was one of the coolest experiences. I mean, BMW. It seems like most German brands are around the experience first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and they even speak about it. When they've done some type of like data around how a person feels inside of the car when they step into it.
Yeah.
And the German brands, it's all about the experience.
It really
when you
is.
Open the door to when you actually start the car.
Well, the BMW is the ultimate driving machine.
I am a BMW guy now.
Yeah.
As a barista.
I know. I knew we were like-minded.
We are. I might have to get in the driver's seat of your M2, though.
You're more than welcome to.
Appreciate that. Well, if it wasn't for that experience, or if it wasn't for the guy holding you to your word, this would never happen.
What I'm saying.
Right?
I look back and think, how stupid can you be? That you got the performance center. You have an opportunity to go in there, and you were just kind of. If the guy never called back, I would have never went and did it.
Yeah.
But that again, that's been a great account. We wrap their vans. We wrap. full. Vinyl wraps, commercial wraps. We do their motorcycles. They have a motorcycle course out there.
Sweet.
So you can go out there and they'll train you how to ride their BMW motorcycles, dirt bikes.
Yep.
It's a very cool place.
That's all. How long has that factory been here?
It started in the early 90s.
Okay, so it's been part of the town for a while.
But so what happened, the reason the factory has become what it is because they started out, they were building 3 Series and Z cars. I could tell you stories about that too, because we have done work for BMW even at the factory before that and doing paint correction in the early days. But basically when they converted and started building the X Series, all the SUVs there at that plant is around the same time that SUVs became popular and everybody wanted them. So that's why that plant's exploded. They build just about every X vehicle is made there. Which is cool.
Stateside or worldwide?
Worldwide.
Oh, wow.
Worldwide.
Wow.
Yeah, there's more BMWs exported out of here than anywhere in the world.
Wow.
They're building, the last I heard they were producing, this was before the X7s, they were doing 1,200 units a day with an average of 80,000. You're talking like 11, 12, or I'm sorry, I can't remember what the number is. It's ridiculous numbers.
It's a lot of cars. No matter
when
how
you
look
stand at the end of the assembly line, because we've worked at the plant too, and you see these one after another, X3s just coming down the line, and it's like there's tractor trailers because this is an assembly plant.
Yep.
So it's ran so concisely that there's cars that are being made within hours that the parts are sitting on the tractor trailer truck waiting. This way they don't have to store so much, parts. And it's all, I don't know how they do it. It's really a modern miracle that the way that they're able to produce those cars out there.
You don't realize it I guess you start to realize it when you're rolling up to the factories, at least my experience when we were in Germany, and you roll up and the size of these places is huge. And you're like, all right. I was like, this is like just blocks and blocks and miles of building.
It is. And
piping and wires and you're going through. And
you're
like, now it starts to make sense.
Yeah, they employ over 10,000 people out there.
So it's a big part of the community here too.
It is a huge part. And then the supplier, their reach down to the suppliers is amazing.
Wow.
Greenville's a great place because we're kind of in between Charlotte and Atlanta.
Yep.
So we're about 2 hours from Atlanta and we're an hour and 15 minutes from Charlotte. So we're kind of a good middle place there. And then all of the automotive, with BMW, for example, just the amount of lives that BMW touches around is incredible.
We're to the point where you own a couple now.
Yeah. Well, so my wife, interestingly enough, was wanting an SQ3. I'm sorry, an SQ5. And we had went and drove one, and she was very close to us getting one. And those are awesome vehicles. I don't know if you ever driven one.
Yeah, Michael's got one. We drove that all the way to Texas.
Okay,
that was a fun car.
they're fabulous vehicles.
It is. Yep.
But so we picked up the M2 at the Performance Center, and they have an off-road course that you go through.
You took an M2 on an off-road course?
No, so
okay. I'm happy I.
So let me tell you, the off-road course works because we went to do the M2. And the Performance Center experience is you drive a car like the one you've purchased that you're picking up that day. But then they also put everyone in the off-road course for driving an X5s, basically is what they are. So my wife drove that, and then you do a tour of the plant when you do a Performance Center delivery. And so my wife went into the plant, and we went and seen the X3s being made, and X3 is kind of the competitor for the Q5, and size-wise, cost-wise. So we went through, and she saw the X3s, and we left there. She said, "I want an X3. I want to order it. I want it to be built here. I want to do a Performance Center delivery." So I was like, I went back and told the guy that was doing the course at the time. His name was Arnold. He was fabulous. I mean, everything out there they just do in a fabulous way. But I told him he did his job because now my wife switched from an Audi to a BMW.
Yes. Make sure you put my name down on the sales sheet, right? Give me the credit.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's so cool. Without BMW, do you think you would be where you are today, at least within the business?
I think so. I mean, it's amazing because BMW is still, less than 10% of what we do.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So, but it's just the. But we also do a lot of Performance Center delivery cars.
Sure.
That are people who are picking up their car here. So that's and we get recommended by BMW to do those cars, and so that's helped a lot. But just for us having the ability for BMW to trust us to do their cars has made a huge difference with our other customers.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's just awesome. I can't wait to go over there and check it out and see the facility.
Yeah.
Speaking of your wife, and you brought up Amsterdam too earlier with the client that let you borrow his car. Mm-hmm. You somehow became this world traveler through the mix of everything. And we a big message of what we always do on these Urstories is work-life balance and kind of having that balance outside of just working all day in your shop and having you can go and have some fun. And that's why Urable does what it does because it kind of allows your business to run itself.
That's right.
So can you speak of how you ended up basically jumping on and jet setting for the last couple of years with your wife?
Yeah, so my wife, growing up, we did not travel. My parents were not travelers. We went to Myrtle Beach maybe once that I can even remember, and I rode in the back of a Nissan pickup truck.
I was gonna say, which one of his cars did you
truck.
Take? Wait, like in the bed
that
of the
my dad
truck?
borrowed from his friend who owned the body shop where he did the Corvettes.
Oh, that's cool.
It had a camper cover on it, and me and my brother and sister rode in the back of that thing.
Well, you were in the bed of the truck.
The bed of the truck.
Oh, getting launched.
All the way to Myrtle Beach.
Oh, that's awesome. How bloody were you by
By
that
a
time
man
you got
who's
there?
a highway patrolman at the wheel. But no, so that was the only traveling we did.
Yep.
We just weren't travelers. And then my wife really didn't do a lot of traveling growing up either. And but her dream was to be a travel or a flight attendant. Like that's what she always wanted to do. So, but we ended up having kids, and she decided to be a stay-at-home mom. So she didn't get to do that. So as the kids got older, it's particularly once I left the highway patrol, which we didn't really talk about that, but I did that for a short period of time. But after I left, she was like, "Hey, it's my turn.
Yep.
I want to do some stuff too that I want to do." I'm like, "Yeah, you should absolutely do some stuff you want to do." So I'm like, "Hey, let's do it." So we started traveling. Really, that was around 2006, I would say. Like we went to San Diego. We went to Coronado Island.
Cool.
Was like the first kind of place we went to that I can remember, and I really enjoyed it. It was fun getting away, and it got me away from work too, which was nice.
Were you able to disconnect?
Yeah. Travel. I mean, like when you love doing business and it can eat up a lot of your time and It's hard to stop. I don't know. Do you deal with that when you?
Every time.
You go home at the end of the day and it's just
Still
hard
there.
to freaking just set a boundary to not work.
My wife's helping me out with that though.
Well, they're
pretty good.
They
at
would
that.
definitely do.
She's damn good at it. Which she always says. She goes, "You deserve to disconnect." Is like her.
Yeah,
is
that's
very part.
true.
She goes, "You don't need to be like wrapped into this all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you're 100% right.
That's what my
But it's
wife
tough.
says. My wife's like, there's more to you than the auto spa.
Yeah.
That's not just who you are. I mean, there's more to you than that. But interestingly enough, I don't really have hobbies. I don't golf. I know y'all been watching the Masters.
Oh, we got the Masters on.
Yeah, but I've never been a hobby guy. It's just I love doing the car stuff and I love doing the business stuff. But she started. So we did that trip and it went really good. And then she started figuring out this points deal with the credit cards.
Yep.
So we have a lot of expenses. I mean, sometimes our expenses, business expenses. I won't say a number, but it's...
Yeah, my friend Bill did the same thing. He goes, dude, you need to get points credit card.
You have to.
And I was like, what are you talking about? And he goes, dude, just trust me. He goes, all the money you're running through. He goes, put it on a credit card. I was like, all right. Well, and it's the same thing.
Yeah, and the thing with the credit card points is there's two sides to it. And I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I can tell you what cards I have.
Sure.
And I can tell you where I've been. But that's her deal. Like she does it, and she loves doing it, you know. But so it's like part of it is, and really for anybody who's watching this who owns a business, this is something they should consider.
Yep.
Because it's the same situation when you're buying paint protection film, ceramic coating, all the stuff that you're able to charge to a credit card, which probably most people are already doing anyway.
Yep.
So part of it is knowing how to collect the points. So she'll tell me, hey, I need you to change your Facebook advertising card from this credit card to that because they're doing triple points right now for that. And this isn't like on a weekly basis. This is usually like every few months. And sometimes
I gotta ask, does she follow the points guy?
She does.
Helps out. I like that guy a lot. Guy's great.
She actually follows a lot of people. Where I am with work, being kind of she says consumed sometimes with it. She sometimes gets consumed with that stuff.
That's right.
Because it's a rabbit hole, that you can just go into. So you got to know how to accumulate points rapidly, and then you also got to know how to spend them wisely. So she knows how to. I don't even understand it. I mean, she can explain it to me, and I cannot tell you how she does. I just don't. It's not my thing. I don't know how she's routes stuff through different airlines. And I mean, we did a trip for our 25th wedding anniversary. We went around the world. I mean, this trip was we flew several like EVA airlines, Turkish Airlines, all business class or first class around the world for 3 weeks. We went to Maribor, we went to Singapore,
wow.
We went to Bali, and I mean the trip was it was a dream trip. Like it was incredible, and most of it, I would say, over 90% of that trip was paid for with points.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Is your wife for hire?
I've tried to get her to monetize it.
I'll be her first. I'll be the guinea pig of the business model.
Exactly. I'm like because I'm always like, hey, let me get my web guy to build you a website, and you can go in there. I don't want to do all that, I'm like, okay. When you think business and creating income or creating some kind of opportunity, it's hard when you hear somebody say, I have this great idea I think probably would bring in some good money to do, and I love doing it, but I just don't want to make money off of it.
Yep. Yeah, I can't process that. It's difficult.
Yes. And we constantly do that because I'm like, hey, you could do this and you could do that. And I even went in and bought her a domain on the, what's the domain site?
GoDaddy.
Yeah, GoDaddy. I went in there and bought the points gal. I think I bought a couple of them, and I'm like, I'm just buying these so that if you ever decide to do something with it, but she don't care about that. She just loves doing it. She loves traveling.
That's awesome. Do you have any spots that are on your bucket list that you guys want to go look at or go see?
I mean, there's some obvious places we haven't been. We haven't been to Italy. That's one place I want to go. We've been to the Maldives. Was definitely a bucket list. I don't know. Have you ever been to the Maldives?
No, but the guy that told me about the credit card, he was there for 3 months.
What?
Yes.
Oh my word.
They're world travelers. Like they're
That's amazing.
She's been traveling. Her family does a lot of not worship trips. I forget the word behind it, but they're all over the world.
Okay.
They travel the world.
Yeah.
And so she's been doing it since she was a child. So when they met, that was it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, she drags them all across the world. But he loves it. Absolutely loves it. But that's how he started talking to me about the whole points idea.
Yeah.
And it was the best thing he ever told me.
Yeah. It's so you do the points?
Oh, big time.
Oh, okay. So you're
yeah.
so you're in. Are you into it heavy? Or
I'm not into it as much as your wife, but I'm definitely there. Like I follow,
Yeah.
I follow all of it all, or I follow the points and multiple credit cards. We actually just had a guy in the shop. He came in for a full body. He asked Mikey from the get-go. He's like, "Can I put this on 7 different credit cards?"
Are you serious?
Which I'm like, Mikey, this is not the kind of guy like that we need to be doing 7 transactions for. I mean, it was a full body film, so it was still an expensive job. But I was like, that's a lot. Like this guy's, I think we're gonna be getting scammed out of this one.
Yeah, something ain't right.
But the guy came in. When he came in, he has 26 different credit cards.
Oh my word! No, we don't. We're nothing like that.
Yeah, well, he's nuts. This guy. Well, I don't say nuts. He's super smart with it too.
Yeah.
But he's addicted to it.
Yeah.
He's big in the crypto world, and he's big into credit cards.
Okay.
And he has this whole spreadsheet of
Oh,
exactly
wow.
when these things are gonna be popping in, how much he needs to spend each month, what he needs to cap it to. So he was telling Mike, he's like, I need to put $2,216 in this one. The next one was like, I need to put $78.32 in this one.
Wow.
And he got it all written out, ready to go, and Mike just started going.
Oh, my
Thank God the
goodness.
Urable made it really easy. Yeah, so it was really cool though, because it was just points, and that's when I realized, okay, you can go pretty far with this.
Yeah.
But
And
I
she's not
definitely
to
have
that
this,
level where she, we both agree that if it's going to tie up a lot of time, that it's not worth doing.
Yeah.
It's got to be manageable time wise. And
sure.
she's been a stay-at-home mom, and she does our accounting. She's a behind-the-scenes person.
Yep.
So she does a lot of stuff that's not seen,
Yeah.
but it's all stuff that could be done remotely.
Absolutely. I mean, we got a lot of trips out of it as well. That's just a cool part about it.
Yeah.
Even a
It's so
free car
cool.
rental.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
a dinner.
exactly.
Like it's cool to know that you're just for swiping a card and you get stuff for free.
Well, we did
now,
the Hyatt
lesson:
thing.
make sure you pay off your credit cards. Yeah, this is not a go get 26 credit
No.
cards, start maxing them out. So
And that's the
big.
thing with blanket advice.
Yep.
It all depends on who's
Yeah.
who's listening.
Well, you got 2 guys that are telling you pay off your cards.
I would have been the guy you would never listen to financial advice 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe what not to do. But no, you definitely got to be able to. It's just a float. That's it.
Yep.
To run through just to
Great.
get those points.
Exactly. Well, you did mention it too, and it was kind of my next part of your life too. Well, I guess story of your life was when you decided to go and join the police force.
Yeah.
So you became a state trooper.
I did.
What was
Again,
the?
following my dad's footsteps.
I was gonna say, was the idea? Yeah. Was your dad still a state trooper at the time, and then you
No,
joined?
he had retired. He had left in '93, and I joined in '99.
What was the idea around that?
It was my dream. Like growing up, I took it was my brother's old Boy Scout uniform,
Yep.
and I ripped the patches off, and I put I took a old Highway Patrol patch from my dad's shirt and put on there, and I had like a campaign hat and all. I mean, I was trying to be a highway patrolman when I was a kid, so I dreamed of doing it, and then it come to a point when I was 27 and like over 30. Now they'll hire any age, but at the time. At 27, it was like, you get over 30, they're not going to really look at hiring you. And I remember I was actually at a dealership in Columbia working the Bob Bennett Ford account, and I was working next to a side road, and a highway patrolman stopped the car. I'm like from here to there, and I watched him. He got out of his car, put his campaign hat on, and I was like, I got to do that. I have got to do that. So I went and applied, and there were like 1,500 applicants for that, for 40 slots. But my dad being retired, that helped. They like the legacy, people coming on who's had some kind of history, family history. So I ended up getting hired, and I ended up hiring a guy. I was going to sell my mobile paint business to a guy, and he couldn't get the money, thank goodness.
Yeah.
He couldn't come up with the money. So I ended up working out a deal where I took a percentage off of his revenues that he was generating while I was in patrol school.
So you're able to run the business.
Yeah.
To a degree while
So
you're
it never
there.
stopped.
Oh,
And then
cool.
when I got out of patrol school and I got a little more freedom, then I was able. And that was actually what started me even hiring anybody. Because up until then, I was happy just doing my own thing by myself. And then I was forced to hire him to join the patrol. And then after that worked out so good, I'm like, man, this guy's out working. I would support him, but he basically was doing his own thing, and I was just making some percentage off of that.
Yeah.
We were both happy. He was making more money he ever made in his life.
That's
I was
great.
making some residual, like non-active income. And then I ended up hiring his brother to do a route and just kind of built it up from there. And that's how we started building routes out.
Wow. How long were you a patrolman?
Almost 6 years.
Cool. That's great. Well, we're all about legacy here.
Yeah.
Michael,
obviously,
building a legacy, with Chris and Kyle, and building that, and you having your 2 kids as well, and kind of following in your father's footsteps. What's kind of the legacy that you want to leave behind for your kids?
I tell you, that's a tough one. It's hard, It's hard to know. As far as monetarily, what you leave to your kids, that can be tough because that can be as hurtful as it can be helpful to some degree. But I think legacy-wise, as long as both of my kids do what they love doing, and that's why you asked about my son earlier, who used to work here at the shop. This wasn't his passion. He does love cars, but he didn't love the work he was doing, and ended up kind of had to refine himself. And he's always been into weightlifting since he was a teenager. And so he works at the YMCA now, and he's just became a trainer. So he's training there too, doing a personal training. Now, he's a people person, and he's a talker.
Helps.
He's like me. He's a talker, and he loves talking to people.
Yeah.
So already just with his client base that he started up with, I know he's going to do exceptionally well at it, because he's just got that kind of spirit that I think people are going to appreciate.
That's great.
And then my daughter, she's going to be she was going to be a school teacher, and now she's kind of switched. She's going to get her master's and become a speech, a language. Was it language pathologist, speech language pathologist, I think is what it's called. I actually had to go to speech, like a speech expert when I was growing up. So I'm like, yes, maybe you can help me so I can talk properly.
You're doing pretty good.
No, it's a joke because I woke up one day, I had forgotten that. And I was like, I was an adult. And I said, wait a minute. I used to go to a speech therapist
so
in
she is
school.
following your footsteps. See?
yeah, exactly. But she's doing that. But if both of them, I want them to do work that they love to do.
Yeah. It's important.
It is important. Not that they do what I want them to do. We learn that we have to stop trying to influence them into living lives that we want them to live, but we need to allow them to live their own lives. That is so hard as a parent.
I can imagine.
And you're no kids, right?
Nope.
Yeah.
Not yet.
It's hard because when you're older and you have more means, it's like, hey, I can steer you in this direction and this will be great for you, but you really got to let them make their own way in life. And we found that out the hard way.
My mom mentioned the same thing to us. She goes, I wish, not wish, but she goes, I wanted you guys to potentially do something that's totally different than what you're doing now. Because we all had, much like what your son and daughter went through, these life change, and hey, we're making shifts. That's why I'm here today, because I made that shift. And my mom said, the best thing I ever did was let you guys just do your thing.
Yeah.
When I stood back, but it was also the hardest thing she ever did too.
Oh yeah, well it's like non-interference.
Yep.
It's hard as a parent to not interfere and try to change the trajectory of your kids' lives. But I think it's important. We've learned the hard way that we have to step back and just allow. And like I say, it's hard. It's like I know you're about to make a mistake. I see it coming, but I'm gonna have to let you do it and experience it. And then sometimes you realize actually that wasn't a mistake. It's just that I'm not God and I can't see the future.
Wow. Well, I'm going to be taking that lesson and all the ones that Michael gives me too. Well, Doug, I appreciate it. I'm thrilled for everything you guys have done, and your life story is incredible. I'm anxious sitting here ready to go drive some BMWs, so we're going to get out of here.
Okay.
But thank you to you and your whole team and everybody, for opening up your doors and just telling us your story and being just an awesome guy. Really appreciate it.
I will say this, and that because I mentioned it earlier, and you can use this or not, but during the pandemic when you're able, I've never had a vendor do. We work with a lot of vendors, but during the pandemic when we got a message that we weren't going to be charged because of so much suffering going on with the pandemic, because a lot of the shops were hurting, because they couldn't operate. And then for Michael to say, hey, you don't got to pay us during this time period because we know it's tough. And I mean, you imagine like that's 100% of the revenue coming in is through subscription. And I just wanted to say we appreciated that. That was really awesome. And it was the only company that did that we worked with.
Yeah, I remember when they did the same thing, and I was shocked.
I was like,
it was incredible.
can this company get any better? I mean, really, is there anything else? I mean, what are they going to do next, you know?
Well, they're bringing Taylor on, so that's great. That's a positive.
Okay.
So that's another family member. That's a niece.
No way.
Yeah,
okay.
so another family member's coming
Expansion.
to the family business. Yep. It just speaks to who they are.
Yeah.
Truthfully, as humans, it's not just about, I mean, at the end of the day, their whole vision around this business is to change our lives.
Yeah.
Which they do, and to allow us to, go and live our passions while allowing our business to run a little simpler for us.
Well, I mean, I can't even, as far as speaking to the abilities we have with using Urable is incredible. But just that gesture, I mean, that was like, a lot of guys were hurting.
A lot.
And a lot of guys
Still are,
yeah. And that it was just an act of kindness that I think every guy who owns a shop was grateful for that.
Oh, massively.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah.
Thanks, Doug. Well, thank you to Michael, Chris, and Kyle, everybody over at Urable. Thanks for Cinescope for putting this all together. Thank you to you and Doug and your whole team for opening up the doors.
Yeah.
Make sure you go online, sign up for the free 30-day trial. And as always, guys, keep shining. Let's go drive some Beamers. Oh, you might want to open that up.